Uh, did you guys hear that? I mean, that couldn't just be me, right? You guys heard that wolf howl, right? It's not just me. I heard it. You guys heard that wolf howl, right? I didn't even realize we get wolves around this neighborhood. I mean, I knew we get foxes, but wolves? I mean, I suppose anything's possible. Who knows? Maybe hearing this wolf howl is a sign. Maybe it's some sort of message that is being sent to me to let me know that, hey, this is what it's supposed to be, right? Get it through your thick head. What is wrong with you? It's like, excuse me, oh, messenger who wants to send me a sign, do you have to be so rude? It's like, oh, shut up! I have been trying to get this through your head, and then all you do is just go on and do your own thing. It's like, excuse me? It's like, whose side are you on? Okay, you know what? I'm probably freaking you guys out. It's like that. Like, you're like, okay, is there something wrong with him? It's like, look, in all fairness, yes, there is something very wrong with me, alright? I admit that. There is something very, very wrong with me, okay? You know what? Let's just get into the video itself, right? So, you know what? That was an opening. Let's just deal with it and hope for the best, okay? Alright. My name is 4D Clif, right? And welcome back to my YouTube channel, alright? Let's begin the countdown in 4D Clif in 3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, welcome back to an exciting brand new One Piece topic video. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get into this. So here's an actual interesting thing to basically discuss, okay? So, oddly enough, a bit of a shocker here. I am not going to be doing some random off-topic discussion theory videos like that about something that is possibly, well, to put it simple, possibly going to happen or possibly never going to happen in a million, trillion, quadrillion years. Why the hell did you even make this topic the video in the first place? You know damn well it's not going to happen. It's like, I just wanted to make a crazy video. It's like, dude, stop it. Okay, yeah, that's basically how I always went with most of my videos like that. But you know what? Those videos are fun, right? It's fun to speculate and theorize about some of the possibilities of what could happen, knowing the fact that it's never going to happen. All right, it's nice to basically go off the rails sometimes, right? It's nice to basically go way off the edge of the world and everything to see like what could be beyond that waterfall, right? What could literally be beyond what's on the horizon, right? What could actually be the possibilities of that? Okay. Now, truth be told, I'm probably not making any sense. In all fairness, I'd actually agree with you if I were you. So, yeah, so no lie there, okay? Alright. But what do I want to discuss here, right? Well, I actually want to discuss something about the chapters itself, right? Specifically, the most recent chapter, chapter 1169, okay? Because now we are finally getting to the juicy part. We are finally now probably going to get to witness what exactly Loki's stealth route will be in the next chapter. Possibly, right? I'm not going to guarantee that 100%. So, to basically run this down, right? Chapter 1169, we are officially back to the Loki flashback itself, right? We finally finished with the whole Herald's past and everything, the whole rocks and all that kind of stuff, the whole God Valley. We're all done with that, okay? Officially done. Now, we are back to the Loki flashback that basically kicked off the flashback to begin with, okay? So, there are some key points here, and like that, to basically discuss. So, in the chapter itself, right, we find out that Loki and Jarl, who they were both summoned by Harold to come to the castle. Now, Harold also did summon his other son, Haruden, but Haruden was basically away, okay? He was out on the seas, all right? We actually learned that Harold basically mentions and announces to both Jarl, Loki, and the other guard giants in the room that he was tricked by the world government, okay? And that the world government plans on turning the giant nations, the Elbaph giant nations, into basically warriors of the world government, right? Basically slaves of the world government to basically fight upon their bidding, okay? And Harold, upon realizing this and everything, had to basically formulate a plan. Now, Harold finally realizes how much of a big idiot he was, like an insane idiot. Don't get me wrong. Harold had his best intentions in mind to try and do his best to get Elbaph to not be feared by everybody else, right? Because remember, Elbaph itself, in terms of like the giants, have always been feared, right? And back in their prime days and stuff like that, back during like the voice injury and all this kind of stuff, the giants were known for being recklessly monstrous, right? They were known for being recklessly out of control in situations, okay? And Harold wanted to do his best to get the giants to basically formulate like an alliance with the world itself, okay? And it seemed like Harold, the best way for him to do this is that he was forced into and said that was to go with the world government in order to help along with this, okay? And even though it was a bumpy road, he managed to get there. However, it really wasn't the pathway that he was expecting, okay? Alright, but we're not here to go into like full history on the whole situation with Harold and everything. Look, we realized that Harold made a mistake, even when people who people who Harold knew as like good friends, even basically told him, hey, don't trust them, right? Don't go that route, alright? Just trust me on this, okay? Fortunately, didn't really end that way, okay? Alright, so here's the other key points here, right? Harold, after summoning Loki and Geralt to the castle and everything, and admitting the whole situation here, like that, he does mention very carefully that he wants Loki to take up the throne and also eat the legendary Del Fruit of Elbaph, right? He specifically mentions to him, hey, you need to eat this Del Fruit, you need to eat it now and take up the throne, right? Now, here's the thing. Look, overall, I made my predictions on Loki's Delph, right? I've actually made about 2 videos on Loki's Delph, possibly. I think maybe 3. I'm forgetting the exact number of everything, but I've made a video discussion on Loki's Delph before, right? Now, when it comes to my prediction and everything, when I was sort of predicting Loki's Delph, I went with something in mind like the Pernami, okay? So my first reasoning with this was basically looking at Loki's bounty and everything, because his bounty is listed as special bounty, 2.6 billion, and we all know how Oda is with Goroseis in a certain way and stuff like that. So Japanese Gorosei is basically like, the number puns and all that kind of stuff. We all know how Oda loves his number puns. So I began thinking, okay, well, what if the bounty itself is actually the hint, right? What if his bounty is the hint to his Delph, right? So 2-6, right? And if you actually look at the Japanese Gorosei of 2-6, a possible translation of that is Pura, right? Which can actually be a reference to plastic, right, in Japanese, right? Plastiku is plastic in Japanese, okay? So that was my first initial thoughts and everything. And not to mention, with the way the Elbaph arc sort of picked up and everything, by having that Lego castle diorama that Road had these straw hats in it, and not to mention with a lot of Lego materials and all that kind of stuff made out of plastic resin, and almost seems like a foreshadowing of what could possibly be. Now, the other option I would like to throw out there is that maybe it might be some kind of glass Del Fruit and everything. I talked about the glass Del Fruit plenty of times before, especially going over this whole moon god deity situation and everything. So I suppose that alone could also be unique, and I would be okay with that as well. The plastic one is still out there and it's like that. I'm not necessarily disproving it and it's like that, but if I had to suggest out of those 2 alone, those 2 could both be unique and everything, but really there's more to really discuss, something interesting when it comes to the chapter itself. So, after this situation here, Loki basically goes to take up the Delph, right? He basically goes to get the Delph Fruit. However, there are a few key things here to basically mention, okay? So, when Loki basically opens the door to try and claim the Delph Fruit, out of nowhere, Ragnir basically comes flying at Loki, right? Literally comes flying right at him, okay? Now, this is a little weird, unusual to say that. Well, technically not, maybe not completely weird, unusual. I mean, this is One Piece and everything, so you really gotta think about what Oda could possibly do here, okay? So, there were a few scenarios, what you could actually think of, like why Ragnar's moving, okay? Could it be possible that Ragnir ate a Delph, okay? Possibly. Could it also be possible that Ragnir is some kind of homie? Possibly. I mean, he most likely wasn't created by Big Mom, so if that's the case, then maybe Mother Carol, but still, it's hard to necessarily determine. It could be possible that maybe Ragnir had some kind of willpower from his past owner thing. Maybe his past owner basically left all his willpower and his hockey into Ragnir or something like that, and basically gave Ragnir life. I suppose that itself is possible. We don't really know 100% for sure, but you never know, okay? But really, it's the situation here to basically discuss, right? Now, there is one key point here, because it is basically stated by Harold when he's under control of Emu and stuff like that. So keep in mind, Harold himself is not being officially Domi reversied in the same way of like how the giants on Elbaph are currently being right now, the current timeline, with, the fangs and the wings and, the giant monstrous arm. Harold is being controlled by Emu himself, but Harold himself is still functionally knowing of what is going on and everything, even though Emu is officially controlling himself, okay? It is basically stated by Harold that he mentions the Delph Fruit and Ragnir as 2 separate things, okay? But he also mentions them as a package deal, which is kind of interesting thing to discuss here, okay? So, the Delph Fruit itself is the Delph Fruit, but at the same time, Ragnir itself is a key item that also has to be taken up. It almost makes you think like this mythical Delph Fruit could possibly be the Hitonomi model Thor. That could be very much a possibility, right? That could actually be a possibility, right? The Hitonomi model Thor, right? Because, taking up the Ragnir and like that, which is said to possibly be a combination of the Ragnarok, the words Ragnarok, along with Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, right? Now, Ragnir is like that actually means iron hammer, or itself, or iron, or basically thunder iron, right? Or iron thunder, okay? Basically like that, okay? Now, here's some other key points to discuss here, right? So when Loki's walking into the, basically the chambers and all that kind of stuff too, upon eat the Delph Fruit, Ragnir basically comes out of nowhere, okay? Which means that Loki is obviously going to have to prove himself and try and determine that he is the rightful person to actually take up Ragnir and eat this Delph. Now, we do know for a fact that the hammer that Loki had when he basically came to the castle in the first place is not the exact same one, right? Ragnir is completely different, and we also know for a fact that when Loki was basically chained up to the Elbaph tree, to the Adam tree, we do see that Ragnir was also chained up with him, okay? Now, so the real question is, if Ragnir could possibly have a Delph, right? If he could possibly have a Delph, and to keep this video on a short leash and everything, not to go off with so many crazy tangents, let's only focus on Delph possibilities, right? Let's say that there are two actual Delph themselves, right? One is the one that's in the chest, while the other one is the one that was given to Ragnir, right? Ragnir himself also has a Delph, right? Now, you could say the possibilities here that Ragnir is the name of the hammer. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of, like, swords themselves and a lot of weapons have names themselves. So, technically speaking, that's not a little uncommon. So, we could actually be possible that Ragnir, the name of the hammer, actually does have a Delph, right? Because weapons themselves do have names, right? Weapons have names. For example, is Zorro's Inma, okay? Inma is a sword. It's got a name. It's a sword. So, who's to say that the same thing can't be here? Right, and then you have like a situation with the Delph, right? Like Spanum's sword, or Funkfried and everything, which is the name of the elephant. And well, actually, Funkfried is I think Funkfried is the name of the sword and the name of the elephant itself. Okay, but the sword has in the the Zozonomy, right, or basically the elephant bro. Okay, all right. So to continue on everything, here's something a bit of a possibility, right? So, while I have mentioned that the idea of Loki having the Perpernomy is a possibility, let's actually think about something. Let's say that the hammer itself does have a Delph, right? There are a few things that I want to actually add here as a possibility, right? So, let's start off with this, okay? So, one key note here that a lot of people basically bring up that they think could be really interesting here is that, with the whole ties of the Norse mythology and everything, and the whole feature of Loki, some people even figure that maybe Fenrir himself could also be a possibility on the Delph transformation, okay? So, Fenrir, if you're not really familiar with him, like that, has a very key role in the Norse mythology and like that, especially with Ragnarok himself. Okay, and Fenrir is actually the child of Loki. Okay, so Fenrir is a monstrous wolf in Norse mythology and Old Norse texts. Fenrir plays a key role during the events of Ragnarok, where he is foretold to assist in setting the world aflame, resulting in the collapse of humanity and society and the killing of the god Odin. Yeah. Fenrir, along with Hel and Jormungandr, is a child of Loki, and the female Jotun Angrboda. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing these and like that. I'm not exactly sure how these are actually supposed to be pronounced officially and like that. But basically Fenrir himself, being a monstrous wolf from Norse mythology and like that, and his ties to the Ragnarok situation here, you could see him as a good possibility of one Elbaph or one Norse mythology myth that could be tied to Ragnir to make a lot of sense of it, right? Now, there is another one I want to add here as a bit of a bonus, because you could also look at the situation that Oda could actually combine these two together, right? You could say the possibility, that Ragnir himself is not just a combination of Ragnarok and Mjolnir, but you could also say that it could be like the name itself, Ragnir could also be a combination of the word Ragnarok, but Fenrir itself, right? That might also be a possibility, but it's a bit of a crazy one, okay? But there is another wolf in there is another wolf in Norse mythology lore that a lot of people might, I've never really seen a lot of people actually mention this wolf or anything, but when I go over this wolf, you might actually come across a few things that might actually seem a little interesting, okay? So, are you guys familiar with the wolf Garm, alright? So, Garm is a wolf or dog associated with both Hel and Ragnarok and described as a blood-stained guardian of Hel's Gate, alright? Guardian of Hel's Gate, alright? Think about the situation here with the hammer itself, how you can describe the hammer as being the guardian, or basically the guard dog of that Delph, right? The Delph that's possibly in the chest itself, right? Now, when it comes to Garm, its an actual name is basically left uncertain of where it actually originates from. One theory suggests is that the name itself actually means growl, or comes from the inspiration of the word growl in Norse mythology, but the idea of it is not officially aware of. But to basically simulate here even further inside that, there are a few things to basically add here that I think could be very interesting. So, as we continue on like that, here's something to basically add here when it comes to Garm, right? So, okay, all right. So, alternatively, Garm is sometimes assumed to be identical to Fenrir, right? Garm is sometimes assumed to be identical to Fenrir. Garm is sometimes seen as a hellhound comparable to Cerberus. Comparable to Cerberus. remember, at the beginning of the Elbaph arc, Oda had revealed to us that Shamrock's sword could actually turn into the mythical monster Cerberus, right? Basically, you might be familiar with the situation of, the Hades, Hades underworld and all kinds of stuff like that. The guard dog who basically guards, the underworld and all kinds of stuff. Basically, the same situation here, where just like Cerberus guards the gates of hell, the underworld and all kinds of stuff, Garm is in a similar situation comparable to that. Now, moving on to another factor here that I think could be really interesting here is that when it comes to Garm itself, there is something else to basically add here, okay? And I do apologize if I'm butchering this word, okay? But the word is basically genopular. Yeah, something like that, okay? I am certainly apologizing. I am very, very sorry, okay? Okay, so it basically means Jinpa Cave, right? Or Gnipa Cave, alright? Is a cave in Norse mythology. Ginapur is the home of Garm, the Hellhound, who guards the gates of hell. The Norse realm of the dead, Garm is often featured chained here until the onset of Ragnarok, at which time his binding break and he runs free, right? Now, here's a key points here, okay? So, first off is this, right? As I mentioned before, guards the gates of hell, right? The Norse realm of the dead. Right now, Loki and Ragnir are actually chained up together in the underworld of Elbaph, right? Elbaph has 3 realms: the heaven realm, the sun realm, and then the very bottom is the underworld, okay? And oddly enough here, Garm is said to be featured here, chained here until the onset of Ragnarok, right? He is basically the guardian of hell, right? You could also say the same situation here, right? Now, yes, in terms of this, he was originally in the Aros Castle, right? But you could still argue the same situation here because, the whole situation with Delfruits themselves, devils and the hell, underworld, all that kind of stuff, okay? It does seem like a very interesting thing to basically consider here, okay? So that would be an interesting concept, okay? That what if it is a possibility that the hammer itself, Ragnir, also has a Delfruit, right? A Delfruit that can actually act upon its own will freely, right? Now, in most cases, when it comes to Delfruits themselves and, basically the objects that eat a Delfruit and like that, we never really seen one efficiently like this, okay? Now, we've seen these Delfruits that have basically, or these items that have eaten Delfruits, basically do their thing, right? Because they know what they do, right? They know what they do when they actually transform, right? But with this, it's much different, right? I feel like this is far, far different than anything we've ever seen before, and to really think about it, the possibilities of what Oda is planning here is insane, all right? It is insane, but it is something to basically consider here, okay? So, here's what I basically want to discuss, okay? Is that if the idea here that Oda wants the Delfruit in the chest to be something else entirely different, but at the same time wants the Ragnir to be something insane and something special, that could also be a possibility in itself, right? And you know what? If Oda is planning on sort of combining these two lores of these two monstrous wolf figures from Norse mythology and like that, having the idea of Fenrir or even Garm tied together might be a possibility. It might actually be an interesting concept, okay? Something to really look at, something to really consider here, okay? So, by all means, I could be completely stretching this. I could be overreacting. I could be overthinking it. But in all fairness, does seem like a very legit theory to discuss. Something to basically consider, all right? Now, in all fairness, I'm not sure if anyone's ever really came across Garm before. To be honest, in most cases, whenever someone's mentioned a wolf before, they've always gone with mentioned like Fenrir, but I've never really heard anyone actually mention Garm before, okay? So, in all fairness, if anyone else out there ever came up with Garm and everything and actually predicting him as a possibility, good for you, right? But, hey, in all fairness, this is just a simple topic video. I just wanted to basically mention something to really discuss and something to look forward to, okay? So, in all fairness, all we'll have to do is just basically wait to know for sure, right? So we probably won't get to have 1170. Now, we'll probably get like some spoilers and all that kind of stuff, and we'll know for certain everything. But obviously, we're probably not going to get any official stuff officially just yet until next year. So by all means, everything, I hope everyone enjoys their Christmas season and everything. Christmas is coming up pretty soon, so I hope you guys have a good time, spend time with your family and all that kind of stuff. Enjoy your Christmas holidays, okay? So, yeah, so I think this will do it for me. This will officially be it. I might actually put on another videos like that. I might try and put on another video before Christmas Day officially, but I don't know for certain. So just in case, Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone. That will do it for this video. This will do it for this discussion. If you like my video, you like anything I discussed, please let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, hit notification bells, and stay tuned for another video as soon as possible, alright? So, once again, you guys have a great day. Like I said, it's hard to basically determine. I am perfectly okay with the Delph in the chest being the Perpernomy, or maybe even possibly, like, glassing Delph to sort of keeping the idea of the inspiration. That way I can basically state that, yes, I got that right! You thought I was crazy! But hey, in all fairness, I'm still crazy, right? I'm very, very crazy! Okay. Alright. That'll do it. You guys have a great day. Enjoy your holidays. Merry Christmas! Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, everybody! Merry Christmas!